One of the most ongoing perplexing things about competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! For me has been the general failure of the Dinomist archetype to produce a number of tops from various tournaments. As I've said before, Dinomists have significant advantages. First, it's a pendulum deck, and while the advantage of being a pendulum deck will not be as significant 5-6 months from now, Dinomists are one of the few pendulum decks that can manage the new link rule change rather effectively without losing much efficiency. Second, Dinomist monsters are level 4 and 5 water machines, which give the deck access to some very effective XZ monsters, in addition to the more generic ones, including Cyber Dragon Infinity and number 37 Hope-Woven Spider Shark. Also, they can actively push number 103 Ragna Zero due to the attack-changing effect of Plesios, which can produce major advantage through draws and destruction, as well as interruption over relying on the opponent to augment their own attack point to make 103 live. Third, they have a variety of on-field monster effects that can address various situations from direct attacking, swarming from the hand without using the pendulum summon, opponent attack restriction, deck searching, deck hand spin, and banishing upon destruction by battle. Fourth, when in the pendulum zone, Dinomists can protect their fellow Dinomists in the monster zones from targeting effect, although it does not destroy the negated targeted effect, and redirecting destruction effects in a sense by sacrificing themselves. I think this protection-based effect is heavily underrated by non-Dinomist players, and even somewhat underrated by non-serious Dinomist players, for it can be game-changing. 5, they have their own archetype search card in Charge that also makes breaking their scales much more annoying than for most pendulum decks, as well as helps them add resources back to the hand through its numerous tribute-based and opponent destruction effects. 6, the deck is able to work around both Dimensional Barrier and Anti-Spell Fragrance better than almost all other pendulum decks, making it more difficult to shut down its playmaking with simple single-card floodgates. Overall, the only real disadvantage of this deck is it can be somewhat slow because it doesn't have a mechanism to pump out those, oh look, I just went +6 this turn. Some might argue that because it's a machine deck, it's vulnerable to system down, but the way Dinomists play, system down is not as detrimental for this deck as it is for basically every other machine deck. For the remainder of the discussion, let's look at my current Dinomist deck in more detail to try to figure out why Dinomist does not have a meaningful presence in the competitive environment. First, breaking down the monsters. Spinos is a 2500 attack, level 5, that can tribute another Dinomist monster to gain the ability to either direct attack or attack a second time during the battle phase. The nice thing about this effect is that unlike most effects of this nature, there is no once per turn condition on it, so a second tribute grants the other effect. Spinos can commonly end duels, especially before the new link rules where pendulum summoning is more extensive. I would classify Rex as one of the top 25 monsters in the entire game, with a meaningful 2400 attack point and a very nasty Erebus-like effect at the cost of a Dinomist tribute after it attacks, allowing the Dinomist player to spin back a random card from the opponent's hand or any card on the opponent's field of the Dinomist player's choosing, in addition to the activating Rex permanently gaining 100 attack as well. The secondary attack option for Rex is not as good as Spinos because it must attack another monster rather than attack directly, but Rex is fantastic at removing problem cards, especially after it is summoned off a Dinomist Rush. Both Barchion and Ceratops are high-quality monsters for their ability to innately special summon themselves from the hand. While on its face these effects do not appear that meaningful, the reason they matter is because they do a nice job of forcing tough decisions on the opponent with regards to their back row, be it Anti-Spell Fragrant, Solemn Strikes, or even Dimensional Barriers. Also, it's always nice to have the ability to put down a Cyber Dragon Infinity on the field without having to use your pendulum summons. Pteran can be a great searcher depending on the circumstances, grabbing Charge and Rush, but I will admit it's not as reliable as I would like. It would have been much better as an inflict damage effect over a destroy a monster effect. However, with both Plesios and number 37 able to negatively affect opponent attack values, it can get its search effect off rather consistently when planned properly. Its level 4 water standing is also helpful when you want to make some rather useful XZ monsters. In my eyes, Plesios' effect has waned a little in its overall usefulness because too many players are protecting against destruction-based effects, thanks to Trident running all over the place, for its main purpose in my deck was to set up 103. Also, with Link Summoning, its overall effect will not be as impactful due to the reduced ability to swarm Dinomist. However, Plesios is still a quality monster due to its ability to aid both Pteran searches and Rex disruption without losing Rex via battle for its effect. Also, its Dinomist name is important to support other Dinomist effects as tribute fodder. Even Anklyos gets in the act, helping the Dinomist family by banishing monsters destroyed as a result of battle with the Dinomist monster, which significantly hurts Infernoid and Invoker decks. Its 2000 defense can actually help out from time to time, providing meaningful defense when you do not have the resources to stop a dimensional barrier or have to work around an anti-spell fragrance. The only Dinomist monster I do not like running is Stegosaurus because its destruction effect only applies itself to other Pendulum monsters. Weirdly enough, it doesn't apply that destruction effect to itself, and also when Link Summoning shows up, its effect will be further diminished in value. Charge is the key card that gives Dinomist a significant advantage against other Pendulum decks that are not Odd-Eyes Magician when considering the new Link Summons rule, and even now, before Link Summoning, it is a fantastic card, for not only is it Dinomist's version of Tenki, but as long as it's on the field, the first time a Dinomist monster goes from the field to the extra deck, regardless of how, Charge adds that Dinomist monster back to your hand, allowing for more free access to that monster. This effect can be quite useful in combination with Ceratops and any other Dinomist trigger effect, especially Spinos, because Special Summon Ceratops, use Spinos' effect, Charge turns it to your hand, Special Summon Ceratops again, use Spinos' other effect. Unlike most cards in Yu-Gi-Oh!, I feel Dinomist Rush has only gotten better with age. The ability to freely summon any Dinomist monster from the deck with its effect intact and not be affected by any other card effects for the given turn is completely fantastic, especially in the crazy destruction and fast meta that has currently emerged thanks to Zodiacs. Rush is great even as a defensive card, for the ability to summon a Spinos or Rex during the opponent's battle phase that is unaffected by card effect can either stop that battle phase completely because they can't get over it, or saves you a significant amount of damage. Being chainable also can really screw with the opponent. I used to think that 2 copies were suitable because of the hard once per turn condition on its activation, but heck with that, 3 copies in my opinion are mandatory now. Rush can be especially effective during your turn, where you summon a Dinomist Rex, and it almost guarantees your opponent is going to lose field or hand position. For the rest of the monsters, I like running 1 copy of Rescue Hamster. It will commonly be a 1-card rank 4 or 5 XZ play, or even a 1-card 5000 direct damage from Spinos linker, because the fact that you're not able to activate the effects of the monsters you summon, not a big deal. In a linked summoning world, Hamster will be even more important because of its ability to recover cards from the extra deck and put them back in your hand. Finally, I run 2 copies of Plaguespreader Zombie for its amazing synchro capacity and efficiency in this deck, able to make a level 4 Dinomist that was special summon or pendulum summoned into a level 6 synchro, and then use its recovery ability from the graveyard to turn that level 6 into a level 8 like Crystal Wing, or turn a level 5 Dinomist into a level 7 synchro like Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, Yazi Evil of the Yang Zing, or Clearwing Synchro Dragon. For the remaining spells, I run 1 copy of Raigeki for important field clearance, 2 copies of Forbidden Chalice to address specific monster effects, as well as provide a small power-up for a Dinomist monster to get over a troublesome opponent when Spinos or Rex is not available. Also, I run 1 copy of Upstart Goblin for speed purposes. Both Pot of Riches and Ignite Reload are valid options as well for this deck. The value of Ignite Reload is an attempt to produce faster acquisition to either Dinomist Rush or Charge, and after Crisis is released, Howling. The problem I have with Reload is that most of the time in my experience, if you don't draw it in your opening turn, its effect becomes more negative in a lack of consistency standpoint than a positive. Pot of Riches is effective after the 2nd or 3rd turn, which is fine because the goal of Dinomist is to kind of grind with the opponent, almost force that type of a game. But note that the only Pendulum Summon condition associated with the card disallows other extra deck-based power plays. Finally, I run 2 copies of Instant Fusion to maximize extra deck playmaking efficiency. Finally, for the traps, I run 3 copies of Drowning Mirror Force and 1 copy of Torrential Tribute for stopping flood rushes. One of the things that can put an opponent on tilt very quickly is getting hit by a Drowning Mirror Force. Once again, I'm always going to be nervous about running Vandy's Emptiness in a Pendulum deck due to all the bounce, spin, and banish effects available, and shutting down the ability to special summon for a Pendulum deck, even for Dinomists, can be very debilitating. However, if one thinks this is the best Dinomists can do, yeah, it will not be for long. Maximum Crisis is dropping a bomb on Dinomists and the rest of the meta in the form of Dinomist Howling. First, Dinomist Howling is a single card pendulum scale without any cost, and the only real restriction being it's a trap, which is an overblown restriction. The idea that, oh, it's a trap, it's slow, it sucks, I think people have really gone overboard with that being a detriment to a particular card. However, not only is it a 1-card pendulum scale, but Howling is a continuous compulsory evacuation device that once per turn allows the Dinomist player to bounce any opponent card, monster, spell, or trap at the cost of a Dinomist monster tribute. Howling is ridiculously good at stopping the opponent's playmaking and setting up your own playmaking because you can bounce spells and traps. Oh, your opponent sets a card during your opponent's end phase, you can activate Howling, bounce that back to their hand. If it was a Solemn Strike or a Dimensional Barrier, now you don't have to worry about it. If those 2 effects were not enough, Howling's once per turn effect is not a hard once per turn. It's only a copy specific once per turn, meaning that if you have 2 Howling on the field, and at least 2 Dinomist monsters on the field, then you can bounce 2 of your opponent's cards. When Maximum Crisis hits, I would drop the 2 Forbidden Chalice and 1 Upstart for 3 Dinomist Howling. My extra deck is as followed: 1 Panzer Dragon and 1 Elder Entity Norden for use with instant fusion. These can help you make strong extra deck plays because you don't have to devote so many Dinomist resources, and if your opponent has activated Dimensional Barrier blocking Pendulum Summoning, you can still make an extra deck play with an XZ play. The Synchro monsters aren't really surprising: 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 PSY-Frame Lord Omega, 1 Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, 1 Metaphys Horus, and 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, offering various advantages: draw power, monster negation, monster theft, bounce, targeting protection, and resource interruption. Finally, the XZ monsters are also rather routine for this deck: 1 Cyber Dragon Nova and the corresponding Infinity, 1 copy of Tiras, Keeper of Genesis. I run this for card destruction from a rank 5 perspective, largely to deal with a card like Anti-Spell Fragrance. 1 number 37 Hope Woven Spider Shark, which is an all-around excellent rank 4 for water decks. 1 number 103 Ragna Zero for opponent disruption and drawing. 1 Castel, largely the rank 4 response to Anti-Spell Fragrance. And 1 Abyss Dweller. Obviously, 1 copy of Bahamut Shark and 1 copy of Totally Awesome are also possibilities, but I've been attempting to practice this deck under the rules of Link Summoning, and that combo is not solid in a Link Summoning world. In the end, one of the keys when playing Dinomist is not to go into the XZ pool too often, especially early, because it strips dinos of their resources unless one wishes to run a card like Pot of Riches. Also, not surprisingly, for a deck that typically does not drop major pluses, it is important to not overextend unless you know for a fact that such an action will either end the duel in your favor or produce significant advantage in your favor. Dinomists are a fantastic control deck and should be played as such. This deck also has a very intuitive feel to it, without a lot of paint-by-number plays, so play experience with the deck matters versus a deck like ABCs or Zodiacs, which largely center around 1 or 2 big combo loops. In the end, I think Dinomists do not receive the attention they deserve relative to other competitive decks, simply because of a lack of flash and sexiness due to the no plus large number combo for the deck. Also, that intuitive feel is an issue too. Some players might pick it up, not really understand immediately the nuances of the deck, get frustrated, and then quit. Well, that is my Dinomist deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.